Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. President, welcome to Advocata. Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana, Chairman of Advocata, Mr. Murtha Sajafichi. On behalf of Advocata Institute, I would like to warmly welcome all of you for the book launch, Policy Challenges of Globalization in Sri Lanka, and authored by Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana. I just wanted to mention Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana is a very special person to Advocata. He volunteers his time since pretty much inception over a period of time as the chair on academic studies. Of course, his time gets stolen by many policymakers and his experience, but we are very grateful for Dr. Rajapathirana for launching this book with Advocata Institute. In a globalized world, though in my age I have the access for ChatGPT and Perplexity, when I observing the first few rows, I still think the academic processing power is still strong than my ChatGPT, so I thought I'll speak less and just wanted to quickly brief you on the proceedings today. So when we had a conversation with Dr. Rajapathirana, he said he prefers more the conversation on policy challenges of globalization. So it will be not a traditional book launch where there will be few speeches speaking about the book. Rather, it is really discussing, interacting, engaging with all of you on globalization. And thereafter, we will also have time for question and answers. And after that, Dr. Rajapathirana will speak a few words about the book. And you can also buy the book online. The QR code will be displayed on the screen. And then we have some refreshments outside. That's a pretty straightforward, simple agenda that we have, but I would kindly invite all of you to interact with the conversation, and we want to have the setup in a way that the conversation and the discussion is more preferred rather than just listening to what the speakers has to say, but it will be a question and answer and also sharing your conversation. And former President Ranil Wickremesinghe will be chairing the conversation. I will be assist as a facilitator whenever to get the questions and direct it, but the key speaking will be done, or the heavyweight lifters would be former president and the author of the book, Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana. So with that, I warmly and kindly invite President Wickremesinghe to chair the discussion, and also I kindly invite our academic chair, Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana, also to join. I will also be there, but we'll start the conversation first. We have a reasonable young audience as well, while we have some seniors. So we hopefully have quite an interactive conversation. So that's the main proceeding. Since also we have people who have interacted with people like Elon Musk, I think we are looking forward for a very productive conversation. President Wickremesinghe, Dr. Rajapathirana, please join the front row, please. Thank you. So while I could kindly invite you to chair the meeting or the conversation, I would first like to start asking both of you, what is your reading about the globalization on a political point of view, on an academic point of view, so then you can take the conversation forward, sir. Over to you.
Would you like to say something?
I have no choice when he asks me. So I thought this is a very important topic for us, because the work done on globalization before was talking about the large countries. And so this is something to do with small countries in different circumstances. And we look at individual countries to bring the discussion to the ground level. Otherwise, it's been a discussion earlier among economists talking to each other. So this is a program, the way we thought about it, was to have a book that will explain what is happening and what we can expect in the future. Yeah, not so much in the future because it's very uncertain now, actually.
What President, do you want me to say?
Anything that you want to say on the...
What's the question you want?
No, how do you see the globalization with the evolving global powers, and on a political sense, how do you interpret the globalization in moving forward?
It's a transformation of what we call globalization. In a way, it is a sign of success of the Washington consensus, and another way, a sign of the failure to attain some other objectives. I mean, globalization is nothing new, the exchange of trade, ideas. You go back, without globalization, we won't be here. For instance, I'll give a good example. Long ago, when the whole Ganges civilization developed, then trade developed. But what happened? Because at that time, the Hinduism at that time didn't allow you to cross the seas.
Yeah.
And then the Buddha came and said, you can cross the
Yeah,
seas.
yeah.
And it went all the way up to China.
Yeah.
So we are all here. Anyone who argues with me on globalization, I say, if that is so, we should give up Buddhism and go to whatever it is.
Yeah.
No, but this is something else now. After from a unipolar world, it was looked at. And it was a way of which will have winners and losers. And hopefully the winners were all going to be the West. One result of that is the EU. EU came together because of the Washington consensus. Now what has happened is, unfortunately, the winners are elsewhere. And there are too many losers in the West.
Yeah.
Factories are being hollowed out, but then they should have followed up. Now China, knowing that their population come down to 800 billion, is automating their factories. These people are asking Africans to come to Europe, and now there are racial riots. Yeah. So that's all that's happening. But what has happened now is also the rise of China. And you have got a unipolar world has become bipolar again. And in the bipolar, the manufacturing is controlled by China.
Yeah.
Finance is controlled by America. Now, how is America to keep this? They are worried. One is the expansion of the Chinese market. Secondly, BRICS are attacking the de-dollarization.
Yeah.
So what President Trump has done is now to attack those, while to weaken the manufacturing, because this is the biggest market.
Yeah.
So they've broken all the rules of the game in putting different tariffs, and thereby he is trying to also negotiate, but it's also causing problems. So what he is doing, that change in the rules, that he could protect their financial power and then break that of China and also the other countries that are threats. So he's identified the BRICS. So which means this whole thing has now come apart. But it doesn't mean that we have to give up the whole idea of a trading system which has been there for long. So how do you put it together? But you're finding now the financial issues and all, and the trade issues are being replaced by two issues, that is geopolitics and geoeconomics are coming together.
So just an additional question. So if you see President Trump's move as a attempt to weaken China's manufacturing, in this level of globalization, how do you see the success rate or failure rate of it, and what would be the repercussions for the rest of the world, and how it would unfold?
I think what Trump is doing is trying to protect the dollar. In the process, trying to reduce China's growth. So that means, to that extent, China can't take on. But I don't know, because the total markets are going to develop in our part of the world.
Yeah.
Secondly, Chinese in manufacturing is far ahead of anyone else. You can't take them on. So if you look at it, a new scenario can emerge. It's not only China, even Japan, Korea are resisting what's happening. Now, if they sort of further activate the RCEP, which has whole of East Asia plus Australia and ASEAN, can they then come to fix a date by which many of the agreements are over? Then within that you have ASEAN. Then within ASEAN, next to that you have the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership, that's the Japanese one. Then Chinese have BRI. So it's a big whiz thing. Then what do? India has to have some agreement. They dropped out of RCEP, but the Americans put pressure. And now all of us, that's why I moved to get into the RCEP. That is why it becomes big. Then what about the BRICS? Any case, the Middle East is tariff free. So you can see a big economic zone come out of that. And obviously, you might also have a chance of having agreement with them, because US only controls 25% of the global economy. These people together can take on more.
Dr. Rajapathirana, would you like to add anything more? And taking the examples from your book, given the policy challenges, how Sri Lanka should adjust, and what are the challenges we are facing and what we should do?
Actually, we are facing the challenges because of the real uncertainty created by Trump. And so otherwise, the trade that we would have had without him would have been quite different from what is happening. He is virtually interrupting what the countries that he has chosen wrongly, looking at the trade between these two countries. That's wrong. I mean, a first-year undergraduate will see that this is not going to work. And so he'll have to do other things also, which in order to maintain what he's trying to do, go out of trade to other things like investment and things. So it's going to be a very uncertain world. That is my difficulty, is that business people can't operate. They don't know what will happen next. And so I think my reading is that this will also pass. This will also go away. So it's not going to be a very long-term thing that is what he's trying to do.
Thank you, Dr. Rajapathirana. I think this is where I need your help. So we have a few microphones at the audience. So please join the conversation. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, please share, so then we can make it a more interactive conversation. So if you have any questions, please indicate, so a microphone will reach out to you and you can ask questions. Till then, President, I would also like to know now, on a political sense, because while we all work on, while you have policies for globalization, what are the challenges do you see? Okay, academics can recommend always, but politics is a different way. Collecting from your story that you have said, it's at a time it's a tough game like rugby. It's also a game like chess. So, what are the political challenges that do you see on these globalization challenges?
On the globalization?
Yeah.
No, now what is the next step? At the moment, virtually all countries are being bullied.
Yeah.
But at some stage, a new combination has to come out.
Yeah.
And we know the growth is going to be in Asia. There be in America and Asia. Europe is is a no-go area. So, for me, is the need to revive the RCEP. And if we are talking of international politics, if I would ask China, Japan to start moving on the RCEP, the Comprehensive and Progressive TPP, which UK is a member.
Yes.
And Sri Lanka, I have already made the application for RCEP. We should go into it. India will also, I think, now that India will finish US, they have done UK and EU, they have to then let's look at certainly RCEP, what they are going to do. So it's a question now of some of the countries taking the lead in Asia to ask for RCEP. This is what is happening. The other worry that we have is what is the impact of the big beautiful act on the American economy, the global economy. We are talking of this, but there is going to be basically the adverse impact of what the Congress has passed. And what you're seeing now is a complete disruption of trade. Trade agreements which had come out 25 years now is being thrown away, and these things are new arrangements, not even agreements,
Yeah.
are being put in place in something like 8 weeks. So the disruption is such, we still don't know what the impact will be on the global economy. As it is now, the Wall Street Journal reported yesterday, inflation is going up in US. So there is a big uncertainty, and there's a big question mark over what the next phase will be.
Any questions from the audience that or anyone would like to contribute to the conversation? Yes, can we have a microphone to the front row, please?
President, you talked about China being a sort of preeminent power in manufacturing. People like Raghuram Rajan have talked about the opportunities being in the services side. And Trump seems to be completely ignoring services except with regard to some of the online taxes and so on that Europe is pushing and Canada is. What are your thoughts about the services side? And again, you mentioned TCP/IPP. If you go to that particular trade agreement, it'll have to be very heavy on the services side. Are we capable of doing that? Sri Lanka.
No, one, Trump is ignoring services because then his case gets weak.
Yeah.
US has ceased to be a manufacturing economy.
Yeah.
It has now to go into services. So he is ignoring services. That is the event by now. I mean, we are looking at all these. We are in Sri Lanka now saying how much we have contribute to the American economy, how much we have got from them, but we never add up what we are giving from Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Yeah.
There are so many things like that on the services side. If you add, then the deficit has to be smaller. No, I think Sri Lanka has to remember whatever it is, the globalization or the Washington consensus concept of manufacturing, looking at the best platform for competitive value addition is gone, because you now control it not by competition but by tariffs. And then what can we do? So we ourselves have to look at moving out from moving into services, into agriculture. So those are the suggestions that have been made. Where can we make the money out of it? We can't just be here. Our problem is we have lived too long on one manufactured product. And then I think after that we added rubber.
Yeah.
That's all. So that we are living in another world. Not what China is living or Trump is living. So we have to come at least to one of these other worlds.
Dr. Rajapathirana, you often speak about the globalization friendly policies and globalization unfriendly policies.
Yeah, that's
Do
a
you
very, very rough thing. I mean, you can't take it very seriously. That is, they're trying to see where globalization really works is where there are already open economies. So the money can come in and can be used in the country that is receiving money from globalization. Some people argue saying that globalization will hurt poor countries, particularly countries in this part of the world. But other researchers show that that is not the case. And so what happened, that's why the globalization friendly countries are people who already been open economies, and they can live in a world of increased globalization. But other countries that are already restricted have it going to be a difficult thing. So therefore it is not the fault of globalization, but the people in power at that time who is going to have to face what is going to happen from increased globalization. Of course, you have to be careful about large inflows of money coming into the country. It will upset our macroeconomic balance, and we have to be careful about that. Otherwise, my thing is that this will also go past. I mean, this won't be for a real long time.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience again? Yes, can we have a microphone to the... Yes, Anushka after. Yes, go ahead, Anushka.
Thank you, Dana, and congratulations, Dr. Rajapathirana. It's wonderful to see a piece of writing by you. Again, I have a question for the former president and one to Dr. Rajapathirana. Mr. President, I think we are seeing trade and investment policies blur the lines with national security policies and certain other policies that have nothing to do with trade and investment. For example, national security, we have Singapore, Australia, Canada introducing national security clauses into their investment policies. Now we see Trump, even on the trade tariff issue, hitting back at the Bolsonaro trial, saying, I will introduce more tariffs if you don't lift this trial, nothing to do with trade. So my question to you is, and maybe even Dr. Rajapathirana, is how do you see that playing out, where there are all these new considerations, and how Sri Lanka should think about it, because these are things that will increasingly come to us as well. Dr. Rajapathirana, my question to you is, because in the introduction to the book, you say that it's also beyond economics, that you look at history, ideology, and so on.
Yeah.
Why do you think that in Sri Lankan society we seem to have this, we are lacking this consensus, or there's an unfinished consensus around whether globalization has worked for us or not, and whether we like it or not? Because we have these some sectors where we like it, some instances where we go away from it. So that's my question to you. Thank you.
President?
You know, Trump's remarks on Bolsonaro is such that there's such a big backlash that if the court doesn't convict him, people might even go and surround the court. That's all that has happened.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, you're playing. You just because you make a statement here, it doesn't mean that politics is going to turn out that way. Now it is. The try is to convict him. So he's losing his chance of a fair trial. All because President Trump went and intervened. National security means, when you put it into your investment clause, it means you're not having Chinese coming in. Now for Singapore, it is not a major problem because Singapore is a big investor in China, about 30 billion, and they are one of the big guys who are driving this whole West China chunking. And what America forgets is, at the end of the day, the vast majority in Singapore is Chinese. Canada and all are doing that to keep the Chinese out. But China is coming through other areas. I mean, if they can't invest in Canada, they will invest elsewhere, in Indonesia or Malaysia or Sri Lanka or some other places. And remember, the only other option to the Suez Canal is the belt. No one else has produced anything else. You can't see Middle East, India, Middle East, Israel one is off now. And after the bombing of Iran, that is out. So you're just taking ad hoc decisions. And Chinese are waiting and then looking at what they have to do. This is what happened now even with the tariffs. Chinese waited for them to walk into a trap. So it is becoming, they are using this as political. It's not only this. Now look at EU. When Russia went into Ukraine, what did they do? They froze all the assets of Russians and the Russian government in the European Union. And now they are talking of confiscating it. You can take over the assets, but you must be declared an enemy state. No one has declared Russia enemy state. So as a result, what's happened is people are moving their money out of London into Dubai. They are frightened. They don't want to keep it in, but you have broken it. So UK has lost out by leaving the EU, and secondly by threatening to take over the assets of UK. Same with EU. So people are moving out. But you're breaking the rules. Okay, then declare it enemy state and take it. And no problem. But we are being asked to follow one set of rules and they follow another.
Dr. Rajapathirana, could
Yeah, to
respond on
answer
this?
you, yeah.
Yes, he asked about why do you think there's unfinished conversation whether globalization has worked or not on Sri Lanka, since in your book you have mentioned it's beyond a little bit beyond economics.
Yeah,
at the same
actually, I was very convinced when we started reading and working on it that the economics itself will not be able to help us out because you need a context, and the context comes from doing not only economics, but history and other things that I talk about, including how the system has worked for us. Economic analysis is good. I mean, we can understand the thing, but it is not necessarily sufficient. So that's why I said we should look at history, for example, very important. Provide a context in which globalization takes place. Because it's a new experience for us living far away in a small country. It's really, it's not just enough to talk about economics there, because there enough that have been spoken about economics. It is one of the very advanced things, but other things have not come in. History, the context that is prepared, and some of the people who reviewed which like the idea that I had gone outside the economics thing only. Very good economists have told me that, and so I feel quite safe saying those things. So why not, right? We should get the best possible information to make decisions. And if it means going beyond the economic constraint, so be it.
Dr. Rajapathirana, a quick interruption. So, in your book, does it shed light on Sri Lanka's context, that on the journey on globalization, on convincing people or people embracing it, whether how do they respond to it in terms of policy and in terms of public perception? What is your reading, and has it been discussed in your book with more empirical evidence?
Yeah, the book is about Sri Lanka in the sense that we look at Sri Lanka as an example to see what globalization will do to us. Now, if there are some people who say it is going to hurt poor countries like us, and other more thorough economists who do a lot of research find that is not the case. In what we find in our book also, there is no such evidence to say that globalization will get us in trouble. We can do what we have been doing always. So good policy, what we are lacking right now is good policies to increase the GDP growth rate. We have done the part of stabilization, and now we are in a more difficult world for us. How to get our economic growth rate up?
Thank you.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
I read the book. One thing I found which struck me was that it's only after reading a book, in Sri Lankan government, all the advisors we got starting from about Caldor, all from UK.
Yes.
But at that time, UK was declining.
Yeah.
Without an empire.
Yeah.
Even after they joined the EU, it was in decline. It's only Margaret Thatcher and Keith Joseph who put it. So we also went down with them. But the East Asians and Southeast Asians, they got the American help. They got from Harvard, places like that. I have met Viswanius, who was advising the Singapore, the Dutch guy.
Yeah.
And they are very, very sharp. And they got from Harvard, we got from Sussex School of Development, and some funny creatures that come out of that. No?
I think we have another question from the front row.
So my question is to President Wickremesinghe. I think you are coming close to 50 years in politics. Can you, because Dr. Rajapathirana's book is Policy Challenges of Globalization in Sri Lanka, and I'd like you to weigh in on the Sri Lankan context. Has politics in Sri Lanka changed with regard to the market system and embracing globalization? Because even if you consider the current NPP government, who historically were JVP, extreme leftists, that's not the way they are governing here. And do you think that there is a better context today to do these kind of reforms that we need to do?
Politics in Sri Lanka has not changed. all the political parties generally duck the question. And they go to elections on what you're against, not what you're for. Or as Lee Kuan Yew said, auctioning non-existent resources. Now, at the last election, we had an agreement with the IMF, with the official creditors committee, and with the bondholders. But what did you go to elections? What did the other parties say? One party said, we will renegotiate this with the IMF. Other party said, we are going to make amendments to this. What are you going to do? Now, how are they going to implement this? That's also, unless Sri Lanka politics change, where you can take an issue and say, this is what you have to do, running on all this, from 56 onwards, running on negative campaigns are not going to work. So we are still going to be in the same mess.
So, sir, if I was just to follow up on that, I mean, we have always had an anti-trade bias in our policy. Globalization is trading more in people, in services, in goods. Do you still think that trade is looked at negatively in Sri Lanka, in the current political context?
From what I can see, trade is being looked negatively. If you look at the agreements we had with India on trade, all have been not been implemented. That's the biggest market we have. Then we have the Singapore trade agreement, Thai trade agreement. It's not been. So we have this bias against trade, partly by the private sector who don't want them to come in, so that their own spheres of profit making gets affected. Partly as a result of the thinking, especially among the left and others. It's surprising. Though China changed and Vietnam changed, our left parties, some of them, some thinkers didn't change. So those are the issues we have.
So, President, in that sense, since you mentioned our politics haven't changed, so even our politics have successfully defeated the globalization in that sense, because we really haven't changed. Is that what you?
No. We are now grappling with. World is the globalization is there. World is going, and we are getting left behind. Why is it that Vietnam, which was so far behind us in 1990, the industries minister came to Sri Lanka and asked me as industries minister, how do we get foreign exchange? Now they are going ahead. Not only them, Cambodia is going ahead. Bangladesh is going ahead. So we are grappling with this issue. We are not getting anywhere. Now we have this main issue of how to deal with the US. We are still grappling with it. We have got 30%. You can't survive with 30%. They are going to ask for less. I hope they succeed. But otherwise, now you have to realize one thing. We have never told the US. US is a member of the OCC. And US has signed on to the EFF and the time limits, which means they must help us now. In that game, they also have to, otherwise they are in breach of the agreement. They are preventing all from us to repay the bondholders, and we must now tell the IMF, tell the bondholders to go to US and collect the money. Why are we just going and say, we'll buy Coca-Cola from you or we'll buy gas from you? Okay, you are in breach of this.
But can I?
Yes,
go
Dr.
back
Rajapathirana.
I don't think the economic policies are going to change very much, because they have no understanding, from I see from far away and looking at history, to change the color of what they are going to do. It's they did a good job at the beginning, but about getting growth will not be available to them unless they are prepared to do things that we have talked about for a long time as economists. I don't see that. I saw somebody, I can't remember his name, saying, but we are going to apportion this party to do this thing, other party to do some other thing. That's totally against international trade that we know. That who are the people who are going to make public servants? Are they the ones who are going to make decisions what to produce or not to produce? That's going to be a disaster if they actually do it.
More questions from the audience? Yes, I'll come to you and then I'll go to Dr. Roshan. Yes, go ahead, Professor Samarji.
Now, I think the effort here is to understand that the Sri Lankan public has to be, their attitudes have to change. I think you're writing the book partly for that. You're saying we have to talk about history, we have to go beyond economics and so on. Now, our president, former president, has been talking about Antarganga, Dura and various things. I don't see that as having made a big impact. That discussion of history, I learnt about it from him. But has it made an impact on our public? My question is, that's the first part. The second part is, has this economic crisis educated our people in some fashion about economics and globalization, much more than words and opinion influencers have? That this particular incident has educated them. That's, I think, Mr. President, you've been in this business for a long time, so I think you know how, whether it has changed, you'll be able to compare.
Dr. Rajapathirana?
Can I just add?
Yes, please, Dr. Roshan.
Basically, in India, if you look at the Indian context, they had this massive crisis in 1991 and they've never gone back. And actually, because people still have that memory of what it was like pre-1991. So it's kind of the same, following up on what Rohan said. Have we learned from it, or are we going to learn in the future? So that's one question. The other one is, President Wickremesinghe, you talked about different countries like China, Vietnam, how they have completely changed their economic model. Is an authoritarian government necessary for that kind of change? And do democracies fail, democratically elected democracies fail in creating that change? Do we need to have kind of more authoritarian governments? Question.
No, I'm not talking about authoritarian government. It's your mindset. You must know, in many countries, their policies are fixed. They may differ on the margins, otherwise on personalities, but not here. But remember this matter. I'll tell you, keeping this aside, why did we get into the mess? Keeping aside the two deficits which she has written on, we came to an arrangement with the IMF that we'll have a surplus in the primary budget.
Yeah.
For that, we had to increase the VAT, I think, from 8 to 15, no?
15, yeah.
15.
19.
So we went along that. And then what happened? The private sector said, you must reduce the VAT. Private sector, and they were joined by the Vietmaga.
Yeah.
I refused. I said, you can't. So they went to Vietmaga and all, they agreed, went to Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who agreed to reduce it. That was our politics. He won. Within 2 months, he reduced it. And then within 2 years, we were out on queues, trying to get a can of diesel.
Yeah.
So this is what happened. And what happened in this city, I think a lot of people suffered. They suffered a lot. And they thought the system has failed them. That was one campaign that was run. It was a very, very confused state. But there is not only our electorate. Remember, the British, where democracy started, parliament or this thing, they thought by getting out of the EU, they'll have a better future. Now they are going down. So there are many countries like that at different times. The electorate, even if you look at US now, the last election was one on negative issues.
Yeah.
President Trump in 2022 was very unpopular now after the January 6th.
Yeah.
They were investigating him. In midterm, the Republicans couldn't win. and then all of a sudden he becomes. So this is a part of today's politics. Maybe because it is driven more by the what you hold in your hand and not by what you read in the papers or what you hear on the TV or what you see on the TV or hear on the radio. It's the whole politics have changed, and then it's what you have here that counts.
Dr. Rajapathirana, do you want to respond to Professor Samarajiva's question on people's...
The honest answer is I don't know. We have to write another book, say 10 years from now, to see what has happened. We don't have, we don't know. But from what I see, what they are not doing, doesn't look as if they are going to go back to the thing that we are talking about, liberalizing trade and these, the things that, to me, the way I seen it, that worked for us. So without it, actually, we can't go very much forward.
I will open up for more questions, but I want to touch upon a point that you made on the negotiations with the tariffs. I think I heard it for the first time that already Americans have agreed on OCC. I mean, we knew, but in this context, with your experience, do you think, President, it's a good way on entering on these negotiations? I mean, President Trump is basically violating all the rules, as you said, like all the trade agreements which has been coming for years and years. Do you still think, since you have interacted and you have a temperature test on interacting with these policymakers, do you think it could have been actually something that we should have told them, or?
I think we should have taken it up. We haven't. We are looking at how to buy gas and all. Yeah. Okay, let's wish them all the luck, but I would have started my trading and my negotiation at that time, which would have been one of the points. Yeah. You are in the OCC, we have all agreed to this. And you are now telling me, don't send these things, so then how am I going to repay? I will certainly work with you to increase it, I also admit it. Why? But you're not like some other countries. You're part of the OCC, then that's where you should start.
Any more questions from the audience? Okay, yes, we have one question at this point. Yes, Dr. Veerapal.
First of all, congratulations to Dr. Rajapathirana. I'm also very pleased to have the opportunity to read more of your work. I have a question to both former President and Dr. Rajapathirana. I mean, when we look at globalization, whether, we're talking about current, what is happening now, but what prompted Americans, 52% of that population, to vote for a change? Because even before elections, you could see that, President Donald Trump was going to take a more sort of a protectionist view on the US economy. The manufacturing sector, the blue-collar workers were losing jobs to what they perceived to be cheaper imports from China. Even to some extent, the UK decision to move out of EU is also a response to some of, pressures for de-link from regional integration in source. So it's not only a story that's unique to us here. So in terms of the policy context, I think what we have always found it very difficult is, technocrats can sit around and say, yes, globalization is good for these, but how do we convince the vast majority of our voters to go along with that? And what are the sort of benefits that can be showcased to those who do lose out? I mean, there are losers of globalization. So in terms of for Sri Lanka also, as we go from this crisis and a new government, a new approach, how can we bring 51+% of the population along with us? And again, I would ask the former president also, what would be the specific proposals to put on the table to tackle that issue? Because we go back and forth largely because populations are not convinced that this is delivering what they want. I mean, day-to-day improvements in their living standards.
Dr. Rajapathirana, do you
Yeah,
want to
but mostly
respond?
the politics is sort of bed and butter question here. People are saying when you have election, what are they giving us always? That is the thing. Not where there is a good democracy or people are free to, no. What can we get? I mean, very good, sensible people ask this question. So we go back to Lee Kuan Yew's definition of unexisting, non-existent resources. What is that game? But actually, I don't see whether this government is going to or is capable of putting it out and saying, this is what worked, this is what we shall do. The first 100 days and what they have done with the rest has been good. So let's hope that they get the idea to really follow economic reforms that are needed, and to somebody to explain what the reforms are, how it will benefit them. Nobody has done that to date.
President, you want to respond? How do we convince a vast majority, while there may be losers in the in globalization, how politics should respond, and how should we convince them?
Well, first question was on US. I think the Democrat Biden failed. In my view, I met him in 2023. I had known him earlier. You could see he was in decline. And no one talked of getting ready for the post-manufacturing age. China has done that. Doesn't have multi-party democracy. No one there talked of it. A lot of people are getting affected. So Trump capitalized on that. Sri Lanka, people suffered. So one was they blamed the existing politicians for it, on both sides. That worked to the advantage of the NPP. Secondly, the other sides didn't give answers. They were giving promises, we'll redo it. We added about 1 million people onto the tax net that are left out. So all of them didn't go work, happily to go and vote. And they were promised now, and the threshold of this has been raised, but how are you getting the funds? You are not getting the funds, you are compressing your expenditure. So that itself is affecting the workings of the economy. Then the other one they couldn't answer was that they were only dealing with corruption. When I signed the EFF, corruption was a big issue. And I agreed I said that we need a new anti-corruption act. And Minister Vijayadasa Rajapaksa drafting it. So he brought that. It's under this that all of them are now functioning, not any other. Secondly, I didn't stop any cases that had been filed earlier when we were in government. Thirdly, I allowed a minister in the government to be arrested. First time in Sri Lankan history. And then I got the governance diagnostic done by the IMF. That has still to be implemented. That's all, but we have all the cases of some poor public servants, I don't know, the guys, when the country was in a crisis and when the political leaders were running away and our democracy could even break down, today we are hammering, only the public servants are there. I know many of them didn't agree with me and they did not vote for me, but they worked. If they did not work, we would not have been able to have pulled this country through. All I had were the public servants. No one else. So when I see what is going on, okay, certainly all those who are guilty of corruption, you should, but I feel some of them are, from what I read, there will be a question mark or some of the others. Now, if you are not going to protect your public servants, how are you going to run the country? You won't have economy very soon.
Any more questions? But till we get more questions, I want to ask, since you mentioned about some of the work that you did during your 2 years period at office, one one area that is closer to us is state-owned enterprises, which Advocata Institute and our team has worked. Did you lose enthusiasm on reforming it towards the latter part, if I may ask? Because that was one, and of course my chairman was in the committee.
Yeah.
While it's part of globalization and opening for investment, in 2 years we could not do any. I mean, there were governance structures, and agree that there was a holding company recommended at the IMF governance report. Did you get scared that because of the elections that you had to slow it down, or whether there was vested interest? I'll ask it very
No,
straightforward.
nothing. The SOE reforms are there. First year we were not focusing on it. We had to get the growth going. And then, of course, there's a committee. And the members of the committee insisted that they follow all the proper steps. You know that. I used to push them, but they said, no, we don't want questions coming up later and for us to be locked up. So they followed all the things. Everything was ready to go, and there were, in fact, by the time we came to about July or so, there were offers. But at that stage, I said, elections is coming. Don't go and have a transaction. They'll say that someone benefited. So leave it. Otherwise, it could have been finished off by end of December. No, it was to follow the proper path. And there were many discussions with them. There has never been a delay, but okay, if this is what they were, even the IMF said, follow what the committee says. So it takes time, because you have to go through everything. There were so many things missing. The committee wanted to get all the papers together. That alone takes you a fairly long time.
Any questions? I have few more. I think there's a young audience. Do you have any questions on globalization, on challenges? Okay. Yes.
Hello, Dr. Rajapathirana. Question for you. I think at least that one big factor with regards to our attitude towards globalization as a country is that people see this sense of disparity between industries when it comes to the income of globalization. Export-led industries or services, they kind of do far better than lower-skilled labor-led industries. So do you think with regards to solving this issue, social cushioning policies are the way to go? Whereas like human capital investments or training, targeted transfers, things like that are the way to go? Or is there another way to tackle this issue?
Whether there is globalization or not, people have to live. The government has to provide. For example, at the end of the last program that we had, people are having great difficulties. Getting milk, food, setting in queues, and all that. So we avoiding that is the first thing we can do, right? The thing is that also we have to relearn to use markets. The markets are good. There are some exceptions. But that if we follow those things that we have did in the past, we'll be okay. They don't have to be very special interventions into the system to help people. I mean, at that time of the crisis, it was not so much economics that we talked about, that we have to save the people first.
I always tell the people, on the crisis, of course, I must thank Advocata and him. We had discussed it before I even became Prime Minister.
Yeah.
We spent COVID discussing it. I think I came to office also. What to do? So what had to be done, I think we met Murtaza. What had to be done could be left to them, and then they had to come back with details. We were ready for that.
Yeah.
We had a group, I just put them in with the senior officials like the governor and Sri Lanka. And then it just kept rolling along here. Anushka was there, 3-4 of them. We knew what we were going to do, so we had no problem on that, and they had to come back with it. How old are you?
I'm 20. But,
20.
Yeah.
Where do you stay?
I live in Colombo. I'm working with Advocata right now. But
Advocata. You have electricity there.
Yeah.
You have water there.
Yeah.
When we came to power in 1977, how much of the country had electricity? 10% or 15%?
Yeah, very little.
Very little.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I lived down 5th Lane. Every house had a telephone.
Yeah.
But in most places in my constituency, the village didn't have a telephone.
Yeah.
had villages without telephones. Look at what the city, how many houses had proper roofs. Charity, one of those who worked on it. We opened out the economy. We got tourists in. We sent people out. Today, how many? The country didn't have phones. Now we have more phones than anything else. Some of you carry 2 or 3. You speak to one girlfriend on one end, you speak to the other girlfriend on the other. That is what happened. You know, these 3-wheelers we brought in. The corrupt politicians brought in the 3-wheelers.
Yeah.
We
And now they are
opened up.
complaining.
Huh?
And now they are complaining.
And they are complaining. The guys who are running the 3-wheelers are complaining. The vehicles that came in. I remember in the youth council, he opened a class to train people to repair air conditioners in cars, because until then, there were no air conditioners in cars.
Right.
So that is how this country changed, and that's because you opened out the economy. And if you had gone faster, we could have done. We can do far more. We didn't.
So on that note, President, now in globalization and also opening up, I think Professor Samarajee also touched upon it. There are a few phases. Do you think like when we opened up in 1977, the rest of it wasn't like the labor side reforms? It wasn't really, the ecosystem wasn't supporting enough to get the growth, because we opened up early, but now we are falling behind, and the rest is
The labor system was there. 2 zones were the best. We didn't go to change the labor law much. We had the 2 are the best. You see, it's a question of, you must have labor laws. You can't be changing the labor laws. People want the labor laws changed, bosses. But then they must bring all the money abroad back also. So it runs both ways. The labor laws, it's not that. You see how it ran.
But do you
Question
still
of giving
think
people inspiration and telling them to go. Once you give them the opportunity to make money, they will go ahead. I remember a case of one of my constituents who came to me. He had taken a housing loan from the housing ministry, and he had not been able to repay it, and he wanted time. So I asked him, I knew the man. I said, I have been to your place. I have not seen a new house. He said, no, sir. I took the money. I have got sewing machines, and I am supplying cut pieces to some company. That's how. When they found ways of getting money. So he used a soft loan from the housing ministry. People went around. They made money. Good or bad, you have to allow them to do it.
any more questions? We have Professor Kolomage. Can we have a microphone over here? Yes.
Yes, I would like to congratulate Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana for his book. It's a timely problem, time. And he's focusing on policy challenges. I think in the case of Sri Lanka, it's a question of how to deal with so many problems. One is Sri Lanka is caught in technology backwardness, and Sri Lanka caught in lower middle income country. It's a middle income trap, because we were elevated to middle income status way back in 1997, and we attained upper middle income status just before the COVID crisis, and later we came down again. So I think the major problem is technology backwardness. If you compare countries like South Korea, they have achieved massive technology development, and President is aware that National Science Foundation was set up for this particular purpose. But unfortunately, we are handicapped in technology advancement, and we are living in a world of AI now, and artificial intelligence. And this is not a question, but this is a comment. And my second comment is on macroeconomic policies. Of course, we can't talk about globalization without focusing on macroeconomic policies, particularly exchange rate management, monetary policy, and also fiscal policy. So these things should go in hand with globalization. So unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, exchange rate management is not very conducive to trade growth, export growth. So we can't just focus on tariffs or trade liberalization, but we have to focus on monetary policy as well, monetary policy and fiscal policy. That's my comment. This is not a question, but this is a comment.
Do you have a
Thank you.
response?
Yeah,
Dr. Ivan?
I have a question. Is that I want to ask myself the question: isn't it time for another trade liberalization? Aren't we in time to do another trade liberalization?
We had the national tariff policy which should have come into place on 1st of January,
Yeah.
which had the 4 bands.
Yeah.
If you had that in place, we're in a better position to negotiate with US.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes, we have one more question.
I was wondering whether I misheard when President Wickremesinghe said we don't need changes in labor laws. I'm asking two questions there. One is TEVA doesn't work.
Yeah, not there.
TEVA doesn't work, and we proposed in 2022 that it be replaced with an unemployment insurance fund scheme. And the other is the desperate need that we have for bankruptcy legislation, which is sort of then indirectly affects labor. Why couldn't we get these things done in the last 2 years? And again, now I can remember trying to get this nighttime work rule changed back in 2003 or 2003, when we were bringing the BPO guys in. And now finally, yesterday or day before, I saw that it had been changed. I mean, maybe you created the groundwork for that and these people just implemented it. But I mean, one positive thing that I've seen in the last little while is that one, saying night shifts are allowed. I'd like your comments, sir.
To add to that, that's what I meant by the labor. I was planning to come for that, and also on rationalizing on the leave policy. I think Murtaza went viral on TikTok suggesting to rationalize the leave policy. I mean, is there a way that you get a better quota and you can pick, you can plan better, or like you can claim for the leave that you haven't taken? That's what we meant, I think, on the...
No, all that were down, but initially we had other things to focus on. And the question was not so much leave, but to get the people back into work or to give them income. But on the unemployment insurance, yes, we are for it. We were studying that unemployment insurance. And the other one you mentioned was what? Bankruptcy. No, Chapter 11 was what we wanted to bring in. Chapter 11, but we had to do the main laws like that Public Debt Act and all. Those would have followed. Chapter 11, everything. We need Chapter 11 because if you look at this, there's a protest against on Parat execution. Some have failed, it has to go, but on Chapter 11, you could have given them another chance, some of the other areas.
We have few more minutes. I also have another list of questions, but before that, are there any questions from the audience? Maybe we can come back. I want to slowly pivot back on the globalization and on also the recent comments that you have made. So, on opening up to the world with this new sort of global order, because we have also applied for BRICS. I mean, we have shown our intention to join BRICS on one side. At the same time, you have mentioned now with a bipolar world, it seems that there are regional formation is also taking place. How should we think on those two aspects? Because countries like India, they are also in BRICS, but they also seems to be getting a better deal from the US at the same time. So countries like Sri Lanka, how should we look at in this formation in a globalized world?
First, what is available? That is India. Start off with that. Have agreement with Bangladesh. I always said do it with the ASEAN countries individually. Actually, Malaysia and Indonesia are waiting for it. Other is China. China was also waiting for one once India was done. We had to do India, we had to do China, we had to do Japan, because there is a deficit and that's working in their favor. So we have to push these three countries to see how to reduce the deficit. Korea, to a certain extent, had taken labor, but there's possibility there. Secondly, we should be able to attract investment from those countries in here. We had discussed with the countries. They said what they can do, what should be done on the short term. But then if you are not prepared to go out, what do? You bargain for and try and keep the benefits you have in EU. If necessary, we should try and get a bit more from the EU now. And, so you have to work this around. You have India, you have Japan, you have China to work with. Go for those.
Dr. Rajapathirana, do you have any comments? Especially, I would like to touch upon on the trade negotiations front, because in globalization, trade is important. Generally, when we go through your reading, you're more advocating for a more unilateral trade negotiation on one side. How do you see, because with the new geopolitical order, President Wickremesinghe is more in the view that we have to negotiate with Japan, China, Bangladesh, but at the same time, even our advisor, Professor Arthur Korola, has mentioned the importance of also on one side on the unilateral trade negotiation or trade liberalization. How do you see it on the context of globalization and also on the challenges for Sri Lanka in a globalized world?
Actually, the thing is that when you look at our history, we have done those things and we have succeeded. So why don't we look at history and say this succeeded for a particular reason? The timing was good, but unfortunately there were so many huge other projects taken like Mahaveli, which should have of course been done. But it veered us away from really taking the full benefits of the liberalization. And we could not show like other countries that they succeeded. Like we talked about Chile. Chile showed they liberalized, the first poor developing country to develop, to liberalize. And the benefits were there to see immediately. We took time. Because I have a point, I don't know whether you'll agree with, there was a tussle between the economists and the lawyers.
No, I wouldn't say that. But the issue was that there was a full breakdown of capital formation.
Yeah.
And though Mahaveli led to inflation, it created capital. Everyone started going back to being contractors, subcontractors, suppliers. We put that. The second one, by 82, we were coming out of that and we won the election, but then we got bogged down in the war from there onwards.
Yeah.
That's really, from 83 onwards, the war took our, otherwise we were getting ready to open up. There are so many plans President Jayawardena had, but from 83, we were just bogged down in the war. Then of course in 2003, they offered us, we got 4 billion from the aid consortium and $1 billion from the MCC. We had 5 billion, but we never used it.
Yeah. And MCC very sad because free money, absolutely free money.
Yeah, free money. Then the last time we had 600 million, we had this whole, we would have had the whole traffic control system for Colombo.
Yeah.
They said they worked out how much of time we are going to save. I was also this thing as to why they are trying to give us a traffic system, and then, but we said no. Then we got a high-speed train from Japan.
Yeah.
So we said no to that. We are like Vesanthar. Whatever comes, we give away.
Yes, Murtaza, there's a question from the front row.
So, both to Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana and President Wickremesinghe, one element of globalization is movement of people. And if you remember when the Harvard Growth Lab worked on Sri Lanka and Professor Hausman's theory about tacit knowledge that it is in brains of people, one of the things that they showed us that there's about 8% of our population outside Sri Lanka. These are not the permanent immigrants. These are the people who are gone for employment. And they kind of worked out how many foreigners live in Sri Lanka, and it was like 0.1% or 0.2% of our population. Most global cities have a lot of people born elsewhere. I was speaking at some event yesterday also, and it was a Swiss chamber, and there were certain people complaining. It's so difficult if you're a foreigner to get visas here, to stay here. They had to get yellow fever vaccines, etc. When you were in power, I think this has been flagged to you. What is the problem in liberalizing foreigners coming to Sri Lanka? Even this whole fracas about Israelis running things in Arugambe and the surfing place. I mean, why do we have this aversion against foreigners when we want to go to their countries, basically?
If these rules were there at that time, Arahat Mahinda wouldn't have been able to come in. They said, damn Indian and chased him out. But leaving that aside, no, we want to do the digitalization and then open out after that. We had so many, but our main focus was just get the bankruptcy over, get the agreements in, and after that go for the rest of it.
We are about to wrap up. Are there any final questions before I give? Yes, we have one more question from Anushka.
I thought that it might be interesting to ask Dr. Rajapathirana a question that is less on policy and more about personal and professional career. So, Dr. Rajapathirana, for you, will you think about how you thought about globalization, its role in trade, what was due for the Sri Lankan economy back then when you were working with the World Bank and others, and when there was a different consensus around economic policies, and you compare that to how you feel now, also having been a presidential advisor on economic issues, now being perhaps more sensitive to issues beyond economics. If you were to contrast Dr. Rajapathirana of those years to what you have reflected on now in the book and policy issues around globalization, is it the same? Are there differences? What should we expect in the book?
My point there would be that at every job that I did, I learned a lot. And I learned from a lot of people around. I was very, very lucky to work with the very good economists inside the World Bank and outside. And I learned a lot from them. And then there's the interest in working in small countries. I worked on a lot of countries, maybe about 30 countries when I was in the World Bank. I learned a lot from Indonesia, a lot of what they were doing. So there's a lot. I think the learning part is the one that I will emphasize. I don't think my views have changed very much. I think same old things work because they work. So it doesn't make a difference whether where I am, yeah. But I worked for 2 presidents also in the bargain. Yeah, and learned a lot from there also.
Okay. With that, Dr. Rajapathirana, any final thoughts on your book and also on that you would like to highlight on the challenges, the policy challenges for Sri Lanka with globalization? And then I would also like to give the opportunity to the President to speak his final remarks. Any final thoughts, Dr. Rajapathirana?
We're going to do another book. He's the one who talked. The name of the book is, the title is going to be An Uncommon History of Sri Lanka, where we can talk about things that people didn't want to talk about.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Looking very much forward for that.
Yeah.
President Wickremesinghe, your final thoughts. If you were to advise the current policy makers, especially with the new geopolitics that is brewing up, what would you tell them? And if you were to negotiate, because I remember you had a masterstroke geopolitical, I would say, a gaming by having the Iranian president in Sri Lanka. At the same time, you negotiated with Israelis on some foreign employment opportunities. At the same time, you, in a way, stood for Palestine. At the same time, you had you had a debt restructuring which is going on with Japan in the center, and you said even the Americans signed for it. What's the secret, or do you have any magic recipe that how we should act in these developing geopolitical tensions?
First one, what is the advice I'll give the government? Nothing, because they won't take my advice. So, Secondly, no, we had so many issues
But
at
there
that
were-
time. We had to just work it out. But I think under President Jayawardena and President Premadasa, even in 2001, when we were dealing with bankruptcy and the peace talks, we had to keep many things going. In addition to ensuring you keep your majority in parliament. So that's one this thing. But I was just thinking on the future. I wanted to suggest to looking at what Asia, Indian Ocean, is a part of geopolitics, geoeconomics. So why don't we get Advocata and the cartographer, geopolitical car together and do a study of what is evolving scenarios that will emerge as a result of the post Washington consensus age.
While you said the government won't take any advice, it's in media rumors they are following your program.
That is true. yeah, that is true.
Do you want
Are
to
they
comment?
following the are they following the full program?
We'll leave that, I think, for you to decide. Thank you very much, President Wickramasinghe and Dr. Rajapathirana, for joining this very interesting, engaging conversation. And thank you very much for all of you to joining this conversation. But program is not yet over. We have Dr. Rajapathirana. I cordially invite you to speak a few words about the book very briefly. And then we have a small token of appreciation to hand it over to President Wickramasinghe. And then we can move for refreshment. Dr. Rajapathirana, we kindly invite you to speak a very few words about the book.
Yeah, okay. The thing that makes me very happy and to talk about is that the people who reviewed the book with the publishers, they liked it. So much so I didn't want to believe them. And so that way it was a success. But you know, he's never done. There are other things. There are a lot of questions that are asked here that this book cannot answer. So we have to look to the future to do what are the areas that are of interest and to get people interested in writing and researching on those areas. And I think that I was not joking when I say we should have another trade liberalization, but explain to people what do we mean by trade liberalization. It's not well understood. They think that you are free, bring everything through the ports freely. No, it's about just allowing prices to allocate resources. Very simple idea. And if we did that, then we'd be far ahead of this game. Many times when we had the chance, we didn't do it. And so we had to look forward and see that I told you the other book that is going to come in the future, An Uncommon History of Sri Lanka, where we look at things that are people have not wanted to look at. For example, do we spend so much money on building a huge building that I pass every day? What is the amount of how we spent all that money? A huge building, I think the largest in the country, but I think it is more posh than the ones I have seen outside this country. So we ask these questions: how did we come there? Are we going to? What type of controls are we going to put in to give the private sector a chance to do its things also? These are all government operation. So we have not given private sector enough room to do a lot of things. For example, we had to put eight steps to take in order to, if you want to do investment in Sri Lanka. And every step is a problem, as you know. And so we have an opportunity to do a lot of good things if we follow the old ways to begin with, like liberalization economy, and looking at areas in which we can benefit. Let the private sector do a lot of those things and not the government try to do. As I was very upset when I listened to somebody giving a long list of things that's what they are going to do. They are going to do this, that, and the other, without really saying about who is going to make those decisions. The decisions should be made by people who take the risk. That's the best way to make sure that we make the right investment. So I also want to take a chance to thank the people who helped me with this book, actually. I nearly let them down by not going to tell the names. three people mainly helped me. One is here today, and the other two are abroad. And so they got the book ready for the for publication. And there are many things. The publishers, person who looked at me, who looked at this book, were not economists. So many times they'll say, "Can you put it in a simple way?" I mean, so there are a lot of things that we had to answer those questions. But I learned that that's a good group. My publisher, I might go to them again. So I want to thank three of my people who helped. Shehara, second name I have forgotten. Then there is somebody here whom I saw. Yeah. And you, right? A third one is Aralia, who's in Australia. Shehara is in the United States. And so they helped me a lot. I couldn't have done it without them. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajapathirana.
Yeah.
And congratulations on your book, and you can scan the QR code and buy the book. It was a book targeted more the universities and academic studies, but everyone is welcome to read, and please scan the QR code and you can buy the book. Now I cordially invite Dr. Sarath Rajapathirana to hand over a token of appreciation to President Ranil Wickremesinghe in appreciation of joining this conversation. President, please.